All right, perfect. So thank you all for joining us today. We're very excited to kick off this second season of Daloopa's data modeling webinars, which is, I'm happy to say, is backed by popular demand. Now, before we start, I just wanted to add that it's great to hear that it's been valuable to you, our clients, and very helpful to you. So we look forward to bringing you more and more over the next few months. So look forward to that. Now, today's topic is going to be about how to optimize and update sell-side models using Daloopa's Excel plugin. As a reminder, if you have any questions at all, please use the chat function to send me messages directly or the call. And without further ado, I will hand it off to Thomas.
Thank you, Anas. So what we want to go through today is how do you take an existing sell-side model, or any model really, and map it to Daloopa's data so that you can keep the model updated. Right? What we hear from a lot of our customers is a lot of their models have been built on the basis of some sell-side model, and they update it manually going forward. And one of key Daloopa's value proposition is our ability to take an existing sell-side model or a sell-side model that you have manipulated and updated directly in the format and template as you wish. So without further ado, I will run through a demonstration of how this process works. So let me share my screen here. Unless you have to kill your share.
Done.
There we go. So what I've prepared in front of me today is just an old model. Well, it's not an old model. It's a model of a TYL, and the idea is we're going to take this model and we're going to retrofit it, and we're going to update it. And the idea is to be able to go through some of the nuances around what data points was updated and what data points weren't updated. This is not a sell-side model, but it could be one. This is a model that I just grabbed from one of our customers. So what we're going to do very quickly is, in the process of doing so, I'm also going to introduce all of you to some of the new features that Daloopa has pushed out over the course of the last few weeks. We will go through step by step in terms of how that works. So for all of our customers, you will likely be familiar with the retrofit function. Right? For those of you who are not familiar with the retrofit function, this is a good example to go through some of the information here. So the ticker that we're going to retrofit today, we're going to map this to, is TYL. And so I type TYL in here. Column is A for line item names. That's where I typed in the row labels. The column I'd like to retrofit right now, I'm going to retrofit for the Q1 data point. Right? I'm not going to do it for Q2 for now. I'm just going to do it for Q1 so you guys can see what we're doing. And the columns that we want to check is going to be column AK. Right, that's going to be Q4, and that's Q4. But before I do that, I'm gonna make a few changes to this model. Right, the data in this model so far is correct, but I'm going to actually change a couple of numbers to make them wrong. I'm going to pretend that I fat fingered, this 425073 into 425074, and we're going to see how the system handles an issue like that. So let's go forward and retrofit, with the understanding that this data point is wrong. Okay, so in the retrofit process, we have to do all these checkings. I'm just going to quickly run through them to make sure that they're correct. That's right, that's right. That's right. I'm just checking to make sure that they're the same items. That's right. Yeah, looks good. So update. And
Thomas, would you recommend going through this exercise every time you manually map data?
Yes, I do. Right. You want to make sure that when you retrofit, you do it right the first time, because if you do it right the first time, you never have to worry about it again. You're just updating going forward. Right. So what just happened is we just retrofitted this column. Right. Retrofit is just a fancy way of saying we have linked your data with the company's filings. So in this case, if I want to see maintenance bookings for TYL, I can simply click on this number, and it should bring me to the source location in the filing where the company disclosed that, right here. So that's the first power of the retrofitter, which is now you know where your data has come from. But let's take a moment to think about the number that was wrong. right? We changed this 425.073 to 425.074. So you notice, oh, this number was not retrofitted, which tells you two things. The first thing is this number is probably wrong. There's probably an issue, and therefore it wouldn't be updatable. But we still want to obviously retrofit this. We want to correct this. So how do you know what the correct number is? Well, one method is to go into the filings, hunt for this number, and figure out what the right number is. But that's annoying. Our new feature called the inspector allows you to skip that problem and get directly to the answer. So if you open the inspector, which is a new feature in our plugin version 1.4, you can come in here and you can essentially say, I would like to inspect the data point. Right? The data point lives in column AL, which is 2022 Q1, and I'm going to select that data point by clicking on it. There we go. And what you will notice on my screen is we're giving you all the examples of that data point that could be similar. And we highlight in green what we think is likely the right one. So if I click on this number, you'll see that I get brought to the 425.073. That's where you can go, okay, looks like the company reported 425.073. My number in my sheet was 425.074. That number is probably wrong. So this is the right number. I'm going to retrofit it. You hit the retrofit button. And so I was lagging a little bit. And you will see that that number has now been retrofitted and corrected to the actual number, right? So instead of you having to hunt for the number, now you can get to a tool, the inspector, inspect through the number, see all the options available for what it could be, select the right one, and have it retrofitted. Right? For all the other data points, because the data was correct, the retrofitter should have worked perfect. Now that the retrofitter has worked, what we can do next is to update the model, right? Assume that column AM was not currently updated, right? It's a sell-side model, you downloaded it, earnings has been released. You don't want to re-download the sell-side model because you've made a bunch of changes. This is where the updater comes in real handy, right? You come into the updater, and this is real simple. You basically just tell me what column you want the data in, column AM, and what quarter you want the data in, quarter 2022 Q2, and you hit update. And usually within a matter of 10 seconds or so, the whole thing should update. There you go, it's done, and boom, all your information is now updated, right? You can click in, you can source to the truth, and all of your data will be readily available for you. Now let's talk about some interesting nuances in here. What you tend to notice in a lot of sell-side models is that they might not have the same units as the company disclosed. For example, in this particular case, maintenance bookings, it's typed into the model in thousands, but the company discloses it in millions. Part of the intelligence behind the plugin is it's able to intelligently figure out what unit structure you are using in your model and map and update to that same unit structure. So even though the company disclosed 162, we've identified that your number was in thousands and the company is disclosing in millions. Therefore, we perform the conversion in our backend before putting it into your model. So you don't have to worry about units. You don't have to worry about signs, right? Said differently, if you think about some of these expense items, some people like to type them in as positive numbers and have gross profit be revenue less the positive cost of goods sold number. Some people like to have cost of goods sold numbers as negative numbers and have gross profit be revenue plus the negative cost of goods sold number. The reality is the Daloopa platform is smart enough to understand what signage you're using and therefore always adopt your convention in doing so, or in this case, the sell-side convention in doing so. So you don't have to worry about the updating and the retrofitting process not taking into account these minor issues, right? If the retrofit works, it works. If the update works, it works. There's no ifs and no buts. Your model should just update automatically. So that pretty much sums it up. We try to keep the process relatively simple. To take a sell-side model and convert it into your own model and to have it updated over time. All you have to do is to use the retrofitter and the updater. The only caveat is if you find data points that you would like to retrofit, that you notice that has not been retrofitted. Perhaps there is a data error, there's a fat finger or something like that. That's what the inspector is for. You click onto the inspector, you click into that cell, and we will tell you what are the options, right? What are the potential errors that would have existed within your model that you might have the retrofitter correct for you. So, Anas, I know that we had a couple of questions come in before the call.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That actually, yes. And so that actually, so there is a couple of questions that came before the call, but also during this call itself. Let me start with the first one. So sometimes numbers in a model are just data plugs. The question is, how do you deal with that?
Right, yeah, that's a good point. So an example of a data plug is often in the cash flow statement or in something with a lot of rounding. So for example, if you look at a cash flow statement and you have line items, net income, a bunch of the few key items, a lot of adjustments, and then the final CFO number. What some people do in their models is they say, look, I don't need every single adjustment in my model. I just want one single item called other, and other is just my data plug to get me from my net income and my depreciation changes and so on to my CFO number. So what you will do is you will actually retrofit your CFO number. And let's walk through that. So when you turn on the retrofitter, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just retrofit this one cell. Right, one of the options that you notice is this thing called retrofit formulas. You can either turn it on or you can turn it off. When we did the retrofit in the previous process, the retrofit formulas button was turned off. What does that mean? That means that when we look at a number like 419 here, 419 is sum of the segments, and therefore it is a formula. So even if Daloopa were to find 419 in the company's filings, we will not retrofit your number for 419, right? Because it's a formula, we skip it. However, if I were to turn it on, I can now retrofit this 419 number. And let's do that. So now the 419 is retrofitted. It has a hyperlink. It is source. So why would you choose to retrofit 419? When would you choose not to retrofit 419? Well, that comes down to the updater. So because we did not retrofit 419 before, when we updated it, this 562 continues to be your old formula that captures all of the segments. The data is still going to be correct because all the segments update. But the 562 itself was not updated, right? It just carried over the logic from before. If I were to retrofit AM right now with 419 being retrofitted, this 562 will now be updated. What that means is, let's just run it. There we go. Is now this 562 is updated. And when it updates, the source is now a Daloopa source and not this formula that you're used to seeing. So the caveat is if you were to retrofit a formula, you lose that formula as you update it because we're going to replace it with the right data. So that essentially means that if you want to have a data plug, what you should be doing is you should be updating and retrofitting your CFO, your CFIs, your CFFs, have your eventual end result be correct, and use your data plug as the calc between the items that you want updated and the final number. So you always maintain the integrity of your cash flow statement, right? Update the formula and have the data plug be the calc.
That's great, Thomas. And I think the second question is that came in is somewhat related in that the question is, my model units are sometimes rounded off. Can my model will still be retrofitted? I think you've answered the question already.
So yes and no. Yeah. So if your model units are rounded differently, so we see that a lot in cases like this. So for instance, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove all the hyperlinks here, right? We're going to have this just this tiny little block here be completely untouched. And let's say instead of hyperlinks, Your hyperlinks. Okay. I don't know what this. Oh, because it's a hyperlink moment. Let's say your data instead of 425073 was just 425000. Right? Hypothetically, that's your data, and this is 414319. You know, let's just say you had this row of data that was rounded, right? You didn't type in the actual number. This is where the inspector comes in, right? So when you come into the inspector, one of the things you can do is you can click on settings, and in settings, there's this concept of fuzziness, right? Fuzziness is how much your data could potentially be off from the actual. So if your data is 1,000 and the actual is 1,001, then a 1% fuzziness will capture that difference, right? Or capture the rounded difference. If you set fuzziness at 0, which is actually what we're going to do right now, it will still work. And what will end up happening is instead of directly retrofitting your data for you, we will give you suggestions and alternatives. So let's do that. Let's turn on the inspector. Let's come to this cell. And you will see that, I guess this is 425000. I guess, yeah, no, unfortunately, it wasn't presented as an option. We went too far off. Let's see if changing the fuzziness will work. Yeah, I think we went too far off. Too much rounding. Yep, there you go. So I increased the fuzziness to 10% because obviously this is a huge difference from the original. And you will see that now this data point is discovered, is revealed, and it's telling you, hey, is this the number that you originally intended, right? The 425073. You're like, yes, this is correct. This is the number that I originally intended. Then you can click retrofit. And after you click retrofit, you'll see that this number, the 425000, got replaced with the actual more precise number and got retrofitted for you so you can update going forward.
So it basically worked both ways in that case.
Yes.
Oh.
So you could have a number that is rounded off, and the inspector's job is to help you figure out what the actual number is.
Perfect. The next question actually that came in is an interesting one, because what we've noticed throughout you going through this model is that the update process really takes seconds.
Yep.
This question actually is the updating process sometimes takes really long. Why is that?
Yeah, good question. So high level, that comes into how Excel functions. But long story short, when the update takes a long time, that's because Bloomberg is in your model taking up all of your computer's compute power. So the way Bloomberg plugin works is that it consumes a lot of resources, and that leaves a lot of the other processes on your computer with very little resources. There are two solutions to this problem. The first solution, which is not the recommended one, is for the moment you turn off Bloomberg, you run the updates using Daloopa, and you turn on Bloomberg. But that involves you, turning off Bloomberg and all of that. That's why we don't recommend it. The second alternative is what we've created in our latest version of the plugin. If you come into our plugin, one of the things you will see is well, I guess it's not the latest, 1.4.1 is the latest. You will see a setting where you can choose between hyperlink or not hyperlink. And in the explanation of the settings, basically, it says two things. You can opt for a fast update that has a method for us to circumvent the whole Bloomberg eating up all of your RAM problem. Or you can, wait 2 minutes and go get a coffee, basically. So there's a fast version and there's a regular version. So what are the trade-offs? The trade-off is in the regular version, a hyperlink exists as a traditional hyperlink, a number in the background. So if I were to hyperlink this number, if I control K, there will be a hyperlink. The fast method inserts the hyperlink as a formula into the cell as such. So the downside with the fast updating method is that you get a new formula in your Excel that is potentially annoying to you. The slow method keeps the fundamental data there. So if you want it to be really fast and you still want to keep the fundamental data, what you can do is you can literally just update it and then just copy and paste values. And then now you get the original data. So there's multiple ways to solve this problem. You can either do the fast update, get the hyperlink functions and paste values, or you can do the slower update and go get a coffee. And just let us in Bloomberg find it out in the background for you.
So it's most of the time, I mean, your understanding most of the time it's due to external factors.
It's almost entirely due to the amount of resources the Bloomberg plugin consumes.
Okay, good to know. The last question I have is, I have data in a cell that is the sum of multiple numbers. Can that also be updated? This is actually a fairly common use case.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen a lot of people ask that question.
I'm glad this question was raised.
Yeah. So the short answer is not right now. We are unable to retrofit and update for cells with multiple adjustments in there. So what that means is sometimes you see in people's models, they have a cell that goes equals 2 plus 75 plus 10 minus 3, right? And they have this as an adjustments line. The issue for us is that it's very difficult for us as you know, a systematic solution to identify what these numbers mean, what you are trying to solve for. We are working on a solution to be able to retrofit and update that. In the meantime, what we recommend people do is two things. The first is just break them out into individual lines, right? Have your adjustments broken out. And the reality is you don't have to break out these adjustments. You can come to the Daloopa website, download one of our models, and just grab all the adjustments you want, right? So let's say you wanted to grab all the adjustments for TYL, which is what we're looking at right now. You can just open our TYL model, go down to where all the adjustments are, right? And just copy and paste that section of adjustments. Just copy, grab it, paste it into your model, and just remove the previous line. That way, not only do you get a cleaner set of adjustments, you also get to see all the adjustments on their own individual time series, and every single adjustment will be updatable going forward. So that would be the recommended process.
And Thomas, I spoke too fast because there's one question that actually just came in. So last question, is there a way to update cell-side comp sheets?
Cell-side, yes. So yes, there is, with some nuances. So a cell-side comp sheet typically will have multiple companies on it. And when you look at the Daloopa retrofitter, right, in order to update anything, you will have to first retrofit. You know, the retrofitter unfortunately works on a ticker by ticker basis. So what you have to do to update a cell side comp sheet is you have to first retrofit the cell side comp sheet. The way you have to do it is you have to do it ticker by ticker. So let's say you want to do it for Adobe, you'll do Adobe, you hit retrofit. After that's done, you'll come back, you do Amazon, you hit retrofit, and then you come back, you hit Salesforce, you hit retrofit. Unfortunately, the process would take a little bit longer, right? Our typical retrofit process takes somewhere between 5 to 10 minutes. This might take north of that, might take 10 to 30 minutes. But the beauty of the system is once you have done the retrofitting, you can have as much data in that comp sheet as you want, and they will all update automatically. The updating process doesn't change, right? Because the updating process does not require you to tell the system what ticker it is. All it does is it asks you for the column and the quarter. Unfortunately, for it to retrofit, we do need to know what ticker you want to retrofit.
And so in that case, I mean, from my understanding, in that case is there is an initial investment of say 20 to 30 minutes to retrofit, but then you save so much time just updating it from that point on.
Correct, yeah, correct. Because one of the challenges is you don't want to keep going to the sell side and asking for the same comp sheet over and over again. You want to ask for it once, manipulate it, you know, throw in new data, remove some old data, do what you need to do and keep things clean. And then you want to just keep updating and updating going forward. So the idea is we want to make sure that you retrofit it correctly, and then going forward, you never have to worry about how you update it.
That sounds like a huge time saver. And this has been the feedback that we've been getting from clients. So very glad we had the chance to cover
That it is.
Terrific. Thank you, Thomas. I know, just want to be mindful of the time. Thank you so much for this. This has been very, very helpful. And thank you for the questions. I want to thank clients for the questions that they asked. That I'm hoping that we have answered those questions. But if you have any additional clarifications that you need, please reach out to your customer success manager, who will be able to provide you with more detailed answers. Now, thank you, Thomas, and thank you all for joining. In our next webinar, this is going to be a very interesting topic. We're going to discuss how to discover new KPIs using Daloopa's data. Now, as a reminder, a recording of this and also previous webinars will be available on our YouTube page and LinkedIn pages later today. If you want a link to the recording, please reach out to your customer success manager, and we'll look forward to the next webinar.
Thank you.